Hi, everybody. My name's Ashley M., and I am an alcoholic. Is it okay if I shut this and put it below? Okay. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and my home group is called Host of Friends. We meet on Wednesday nights at 1175 Overlook Avenue on the west side of Cincinnati. My sobriety date is May 10th, 2018, and I am sponsored. I have worked the steps, and I sponsor others, and I'm really grateful to be here. The flyer said something about me being a circuit speaker. I'm not really sure that that's true. I don't know if there's a sobriety requirement for that, or if somebody just put my name in a hat and it came out. But I'm really grateful to be here. Like Justin said, and those before us, it's an honor to be able to stand at this podium and carry this message. This program has saved my life, ultimately giving me a relationship with a higher power that I didn't really have a concept of before. And over the years, I've come to have that evolve many times, and still continuing to evolve, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm gonna use my phone so I can track the time. I don't really know how to work it. I got it about an hour before this meeting. In fact, I'll back up just a little bit. I was able to come out Thursday. Had a little time off work, and I thought, if I'm coming to Colorado, I want to be able to see how beautiful it is, right? The mountains. I'm from a place with some hills, but certainly no mountains. And so I wanted to come out early. I did on Thursday, and I rented a car. And so I've got myself ready. I'm traveling alone. And I remember having seen on the credit card statement, Hertz. And I'm like, okay. So I see the big yellow Hertz bus, the shuttle to get me to the rental car station, which, by the way, you guys have a huge airport and a huge rental car space, and anybody could get lost, but I pride myself on being independent and knowing how to get places. So I jump on the yellow bus, and I'm like, in fact, I didn't just jump on it. I ran it down, me and this guy, and he was aside with me, it's gonna run away, and we gotta get on it. So we hurried and jumped on the bus, and I get there, and it hits me. I'm like, pretty sure my confirmation said, dollar rental. I was it was probably just a combination bus. It's cheaper, so I'm probably just borrowing their bus or whatever. No, I'm on the wrong bus. So I asked the bus driver, I'm like, hey, is there a dollar rental over here? He's like, no, you got to go back to the airport for that. I was starting at go. So I go back to the airport, lose an hour. I'm like, okay, this is a great start. I'm like, all right, God's testing me, right? How tolerant and kind and patient can I be? Am I filled with the Spirit, or am I going to cuss somebody out? It's it could go either way. I'm holding it together, and I get to the rental car desk, and the girl tells me that she had a flat tire that morning, and I'm like, this is a great opportunity to be it's all good. We're right where we're supposed to be. She's like, yeah, it was really hard. I was like, well, you're in a place of rental cars. Surely they came to pick you up, right? Nobody was short on a car. So we're sitting there, and tapped me on the shoulder. Ma'am, you have my luggage. I had taken somebody's luggage. I got a better car out of that. That girl felt so bad for me. She was like, wrong shuttle, and you tried to steal somebody's luggage? Yeah, you're getting the upgrade. So I'm in this cute little Honda HRV or HVR or whatever. I don't know, it's cute. So, now that the nerves are gone, I hear you guys had a speaker from Cincinnati not long ago, Angie P. She's fantastic. She sings at the end of her share. I won't do that. You don't want me to do that. So she's great. And here's a quick little story. I moved to Cincinnati. It was a little over 10 years ago, and I first started to enter the program in Cincinnati, and we have amazing AA. I mean, such a great group of people, really strong pillars of our community, always showing us the right way, and offering the spiritual toolkit. And I have no idea about anything, but I got a little service position at the central office, and it's called Night Owl. So you answer the phone overnight when the office is closed. You guys might have something like that. I'm 5 minutes sober. I don't even know why anybody let me answer a phone, but I'm really grateful that they just want you to get involved. We want us to get involved, because if we're involved, we have a way better chance of staying tethered to the solution, right? So I'm answering this phone, and some of them were crazy calls and prank calls, and every once in a while you'd get somebody who was really interested in recovery. And anyway, I get this call, and I thought it was a prank. It was somebody from Dubai. And I was like, what? Somebody from Dubai looking for Angie P in Cincinnati? It was like blew my mind. I didn't even know Alcoholics Anonymous was like worldwide. Like that was like, what? So I called the central office. I was like, do you know somebody named Angie P? Because somebody from Dubai is looking for her. And so got her connected out there. And I always remember that. And so I'm really, really grateful to be here. As I mentioned, my sobriety date is May 10th, 2018. That is a miracle for me. I am not the person that came to Alcoholics Anonymous and was blessed with the willingness to be able to stay here. I have found over and over again in my life that I was like a boy whistling in the dark, like the book describes. I'd give anything to have half a dozen drinks, right? Get away with it. Not happy about my sobriety. And I would continue to blot out, right? And I just want to say, Justin, thank you so much for your share on Step 5. I could have listened to you all night. Like, I feel like you should be up here telling us about it because you nailed it. And I hope that I can carry the message too. You said a lot of things that I relate to, so I might share those in my story. We have such a wonderful language here, and they call it the language of the heart. And I didn't have a way to describe really any of this until I came and sat and braked bread with you guys, and I listened in meetings, and I read from the big book, and I read from the 12 and 12, and I met with my sponsor. Suddenly, I was given these words of how to describe my alcoholism, how to describe what was going on up here in my head, right? How to describe that desperate feeling and the not wanting to drink, but having to drink anyway. They say like against your will. Like, I didn't know that's what that was. Like, I had the best intentions all the time. I wasn't raised in a way that I didn't have morals, or, they didn't provide all the opportunities for me for education and support in my household. Like, I had all of those things. And I became alcoholic anyway, or I was alcoholic anyway at alcohol, right? It's in me, and not because anybody, made me that way. I'm physically and bodily different than others. My grandma can have a beer or two, get a little bit woozy, want to have a hamburger, and go home and watch CSI, My mom can go to happy hour and, put something in the microwave and sit down and go to sleep. And like, it's normal, Not me, buddy. I start drinking and I might wind up 3 states away with a guy I've never met, driving a stolen car, no lie, and have to Greyhound back on my grandma's dime. Yeah. Those were crazy days, and I'm just grateful I don't have to live that way anymore. I started drinking, I think I was about, I don't know, you know how the first drink is. Like, nobody really knows when that is. Like, if you're an alcoholic, for sure, like, you were sneaking that around as often as you could. And but I do remember my first drunk, and I'll tell you about that very quickly, because what it tells me is that I have no off button, and I also have no ability to control no matter how ridiculously sick I get, and I black out pretty quick. I was about 15 years old, and I was babysitting for a friend of the family. She had 2 daughters, and I was supposed to babysit these 2 girls. I invited a couple of friends over, a gal my age and a guy who was a bit older that had some alcohol, because gotta have that. And we started to drink Jack Daniels, which, by the way, I cannot stand the smell of that to this day. And I black out. I have no idea what happened to those 2 girls I was supposed to be babysitting. Don't even know. What I do know is that many years later, like 20 of them, one of the girls popped up on Facebook, and she's a sober member of another program. And I thought, wow, wow. But that's just how it starts. The next morning was Mother's Day, and I remember I had gotten dropped off at home, and I basically crawled up the driveway and had to knock on the door because the storm glass was locked, which I felt like was very offensive to me that night. I was like, the key won't work. No, it's the storm door. But anyway, I had to ask my mom to let me in, and she was upset. It was that first sign of like, what have you done? And I knew that she was angry and disappointed, and I just didn't care. I just didn't care. And I'd like to tell you I drank for the effect produced by it, but since I blacked out so fast, I don't even know what the effect was, but I did effectively puke in the toilet a lot. So the next morning was Mother's Day, and I remember the guilt and the shame. And my mom took me to my grandparents, and they had this little place over in this little town. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to make it through breakfast. Like my stomach is turning, and my hands are sweating, and my head is pounding, and I hate myself, and I can only think about getting more alcohol. And why I would only be thinking about more alcohol at that point, I have no idea. But the obsession had already started, right? The night before, the allergy existed. I put it into my body. I don't know when to stop, so I black out. The next morning, I don't have the alcohol. I hate myself for drinking. I'm seeing real life consequences, and all I can think about is getting to another drink. And there started the cycle. I was about 15. Right? Peppered along throughout my stay. Like, my mom's a bartender. She's been a bartender mostly my whole life in the service industry. She raised me as a single mom for a long time. I never wanted for anything. My grandparents were the rocks in my family. They were very much like mom and dad. I had a lot of opportunities. I played sports all over the country, basketball specifically. I did swimming and tennis, and I had all of these opportunities through high school. And I really had, a good shot of doing something with athletics, particularly basketball. But see, when I start drinking, I have no control over my decisions, right? Alcohol starts to call the shots. So I can't make it to basketball. I stop going to school. My coaches ask me why I'm not making it to practice. You know what I mean? And I'm being dishonest, not because I'm a liar, but because I have to protect my alcohol. I don't want anybody to know why I'm not making it somewhere, because then they would make me stop. So it's a him problem, a her problem, the car problem, I slept in problem. Whatever the problem was, it wasn't me, and it certainly wasn't my drinking. And I grew up in a town that there was plenty of marijuana and all those other things too. So peppered throughout my story, you're gonna find some of that. But at the end of the day, alcohol is my love. And I always try to protect it. At least I always did until I had another solution. So I get to be about 17, 18 years old. Well, 18 years old. I turned 18 years old, and I said I'm done with school because I wasn't going anyway, because I'd walk in the front door and walk out the back door and pop into some guy's car that had a license and had a bottle, and that's what we would do for the day. And I would go home after school like I had been there. How was school, Ashley? Great. Never even went, So by the time I turned 18, I had to go to the registrar's office and unregister myself. And what happened is the last little bit of tether to reality and sanity and hope for any kind of accountability in my life was gone. And it was just suddenly like I could drink the way that I wanted to drink. I didn't really have to, be anywhere. And I would try to get some jobs, and I would try to get little apartments. And what would end up happening is I would always find a him, There's always a him in my story. And they would usually be the kind that were just fresh out of jail. I don't know why I'm like that. They were fun till they weren't, One time I remember at my local hometown mall, I'm from Dayton, Ohio, by the way. Not exactly Dayton, but a little suburb of Dayton. And I've lived in Cincinnati for quite a while, but, just being involved with guys that I had no business being involved with. And one of those guys had recently been released from prison and apparently had quite the fondness for weapons. And I did not know it at the time. And I'm just some, girl trying to get drunk and, live this wild and crazy life. And we're walking out of Macy's. It was Lazarus at the time. I don't know if anybody knows what Lazarus is, but it's an old department store. And they came, guns drawn. And I was like, whoa, what'd you do, And I just stayed with them. Like, it was totally normal. Like, why would I leave? Like, this just becomes the reality. It's like the bar gets lower and lower and lower. And I think somewhere in the book talks about, sordid places. And we, hang around people that are, similar or even worse than us, or maybe you become the worst one. And just like it becomes the normal. And that was terrorizing my family. And that's a whole long story I won't get into. But so this is the way I'm living. And I hit a stretch of time there where it was about a 5-year period where I kind of just referred to them as the dark ages. I'm blacking out a lot. I'm couch surfing. I can't hold a job. My friends and my family don't want me around. Honestly, I'm starting to steal from my family because I got to have money to drink. I am going in and out of jails and institutions. Thank God for those opportunities of intervention, because had it not been for those places, I probably would have been dead. I think we all have, a history of reaching a bottom, and I look back on it and I think, my God, how did I go through those things? Like, I just don't even know who that person is anymore. The way that I lived, the savageness that I lived, the insanity in my head. And, we all have our story, but I heard a lot of people doing that. I terrified. I stole sleep. I stole money. I stole hopes and dreams of my family who loved me so much. And I can never repay that. And, nowadays what I try to do is I take my grandma her favorite, rye bread from a little bakery that is in Cincinnati. She tries to pay me for it every time. It was like $3.25. Now it's like $6.75. And now I want to take the money because I'm like, haven't I paid it all? No, I wouldn't take the money. But, it's just these little ways. I'll never be able to give back what I've stolen from them. But Alcoholics Anonymous is slowly teaching me a way to be a better person and be God conscious and try to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Those are the reasons. So anyway, I want to tell you about my first experience with God because it's important, right? Because if what I know to be true here is, go to the bitter ends or expect spiritual help, and I'm willing to accept spiritual help, what does that look like for me? So I grew up down the street from a gal who, her family went to church all the time, like every Sunday on Wednesdays, 2 or 3 times at church. They put them in the bus, whatever. They all went to church. And I remember being kind of envious of that because I didn't have that in my family. We weren't a church-going group of people. I think I might have on Easter Sunday once or twice popped over to the preschool that I went to, for the sake of Easter church. But I didn't have a relationship with any kind of God. And I didn't have terms like higher power or your own conception, broad and roomy. It's good enough. Like, I didn't have those things. Those came later. So I'm trying to understand her relationship with God, and I'm thinking that's what we do, right? Because there was still always a little bit of a hole there, right? And I would fill it with different things. I filled it once with sports, for a long time with sports. The validation, the feeling good, the achievement, the success, the recognition, that did it for a little while. That stopped working, right? Then we start with the boys. And then the drinking, right? And then I would do it with shopping and all these different things. I've got all these eating, food. God, food is a whole other thing. That was a long time ago. But I would eat like a whole pizza and like a 2-liter and order a sub on the side just in case I ran out, So that was a long time ago and a different journey. But anyway, so back to God. I would watch this girl go to church, and her family was very, very religious. And I remember she gave me my first Bible, and I always knew that there was something special in there. I didn't know how to read it. I knew how to read, but I didn't know how to read it, I couldn't hear the message, but I always had this internal seeking. That's a thing, and I didn't know that either. So that existed, and so what ended up happening was I was early in my 20s, and my drinking has become absolutely unbearable, and I know it, and I got to do something about it, but I'm not really sure what that's going to be. And I ended up going to jail because I did that a lot. And I ran into this group of women in a little jail that seemed really happy. This group of women seemed really happy. I'm like, you're in jail. Why would you be happy? But they had a light, right? They had a hope about them. What they had was a solution that I did not have, okay? So I step over to this gal and I say, hey, what's up? What are you guys doing when you leave here? That's a common question in jail if you've ever been. Where are you going? What's the plan? Gonna meet up somewhere? What treatment center are you going to? What can I tell the judge to get out of trouble? So anyway, the story for that month was we were going to go to this place called Having the Courage to Change, and it's in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I remember I'm from Dayton, so I hadn't been to Cincinnati yet. And they started talking about God, and they started talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, and they started talking about a treatment center that would allow you to start your life over and live there, right? A long-term treatment center. And I thought that sounded better than jail. So I went there, and that's how I moved to Cincinnati. And what started to happen right then and there, it was a faith-based treatment center, which is really cool because that's where I start to get this introduction to God, right? But I was going to church twice a week, and I was starting to read the Bible, and there was all of these rules, and I forgot I had alcoholism, right? Because I'm not with you guys. Nobody is telling me that to drink will kill me, right? I'm saved. Everything's great. Like, you're delivered. And I started to live in this delusional world that maybe I could have a drink again. See, I have to be plugged in with you guys, right? And then I have to give that message away to keep it. That's the way that works. See, I didn't know it at the time. I thought God was the solution. And in a way, God is the solution. That is absolutely our solution. But that part that wasn't there was to carry the message of those steps back to someone else, right? That's the real clutch. So I go to this faith-based treatment center, and I'm there for, 9 months or a while, and I start to think if I go to Bible college, that's the real winner, right? If I marry a minister and I teach Bible study on Wednesdays, it'll fix me because I still have that hole in there, right? I still have alcoholism. And at the end of the day, I'm irritable and I'm restless and I'm discontent and I'm white knuckling it just to not drink. But I'm filling it with something else. And for a little while, that works. Okay? So I move onto campus and I'm about 23 at the time. I pretend it's like my first college adventure. Like I'm a girl leaving high school and I'm going to college. And I remember my mom takes me over to Walmart, right? And I get the bedspread and I get the stuff to put in my college dorm and I move in. And I'm 23 and I've already been to prison. Yeah, that's the truth. So I move into campus and there's a gal, her name is, it doesn't matter what her name is. Anyway, she had grown up in the state next to us and she was 17 years old. And one day she comes home and I have the local news on. And she says, "Hey, can we turn that off?" And I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm not allowed to watch that." I was like, "Allowed by who? It's the news." She said, My parents say it's too violent." She had been homeschooled her whole life. And this Cincinnati news that had shootings and killings and robbings, like it was pretty, it's there, you know what I mean? We don't live in a area that's not like that. So I just knew immediately I was different than her, and I was different than that school, and I wasn't going to survive there because I felt super alone. And I don't know how long after that, but I found my new best friend, and she was a few blocks up, but tendon bar at EJ's, this little hole-in-the-wall bar, and I went in there, and now I know that I had convinced myself, very much like the whiskey and the milk, that if I put enough juice in the booze, probably be okay. Apparently, a couple of hurricanes says that is not the truth. I meet another him. We move into his mom's house, live on the floor because there's no bed. Yeah. Actually, it gets better. There was like a hole in the bathroom, like below the commode to the side that went down to the kitchen. Like you could be on the toilet and be like, "Hey." Yeah, that's a true story. Yeah, I don't know. My drinking takes me to places I would never set foot in today. And the lies in my head will tell me it's okay. I'll convince myself that what's going on is not that bad. And that is terrifying. Where was I? I was at school and drinking again. There's a lot of that, kind of the repetitive cycle, right? I moved to Cincinnati in 2014. The cards had been played. You know, I'd run out of road. I was running from some legal consequences. And somebody said, "What are you going to do this time?" And I was like, I think I'm going to try that AA stuff. See, the funny thing is I was taking my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting when I was 17 years old. My grandfather took me to an old Methodist church basement where his mother had played the organ and taught music to the church. And ironically, that's where I went to my first meeting. And full circle, my grandpa just returned to that church after like 50 years to reconnect with a power greater than himself. And he's taken my agnostic grandmother with him. And it's incredible. See, they see what I do here, and they see a spiritual journey that I'm on, and I think that they're curious, and I think that they see the change that has occurred, and I always tell them it's God, right? They know that there's the fellowship, and they know that there was some step work, and the details of that are not necessarily important, but what they know is it's a loving and powerful hand of God right? And the work that I do here to maintain that connection. And I think they've gotten curious, and that's a beautiful thing. So anyway, my first meeting, 17 years old, at that church basement, much like these posters you see here on the other side of me, they were hanging up on the wall. There was a coffee pot and a bunch of old men. There might have been one woman or two, and now I know they weren't that old, right? They were not that old. I went back there a couple times over the past few years, and some of those guys are still sitting there. It's incredible to me. Right? It's incredible to me. The way we honor and love our home groups, the way we honor and love our service commitments, the way we honor and love and hold our seats here, because they're the most important thing that we have, right? These relationships that we build, the doors that we keep open for each other, that there's always a place for somebody to go, right? To hear that message. It's a beautiful thing. It's such a gift. See, one time I hated it. I was like, I don't want to do AA. I'm too young. I'm going to grow out of it. Like, oh God, they seem so old. Coffee? I don't even like coffee. I love coffee now. I don't even know how I don't even know how I'd get up. But back then it was like that. You know, I just didn't see the gift that was there. It would come later. So I was introduced very early. So when I say in 2014, what are you going to do? Like, this is where a decision came in, and grace was there, and God did for me to funnel me back to Cincinnati. And here's what started to happen. I really started to take a hold of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And I ended up getting into a relationship because, see, a lot of my character defects aren't gone, right? See, I'm just not drinking. See, I think abstinence is the solution. I don't know that we dig deeper for spiritual experience. I don't know that we turn our will and our lives over to God, right? I think that we just turn the alcohol over to God. And I think that we keep the rest of it, and we get to decide who and what we are. But see, who and what I am fundamentally inside is my problem. My thinking is the problem, right? That part in me that says that you're not good enough or you're better than sometimes, right? That'll keep me out of the room too. Fear has driven me a lot. Fear of my wreckage of my past, which I've worked really hard and been given lots of grace to be able to get cleaned up, and just a lot of barriers, you know. So here we are. What are you going to do? I'm going to head to Cincinnati. I meet this guy. And here's what happened. I thought I got here and I heard, don't drink and go make coffee. And that's what I did. I went to the meeting and I went to make coffee. And I didn't really work with a sponsor. I wasn't willing to do the steps, and if I did do them, I half did them, and I wasn't honest about them. And I was living in sober living at the time, and so I did it just to check a box, right? Because I needed an overnight pass, or I needed to go home for a while. So I just did the bare minimum to get by, and that means I got bare minimum results. What I did do was learn how to be of service, because I fell into a relationship. He and his mother had been sober for a while, and I started to emulate them. And I did that, but I wasn't doing the middle steps, right? I wasn't developing a relationship with a power greater than myself. I was developing a relationship with a human power, and that human power was going to fail me. And after, nearly 3 years and that relationship ended, I was desperately in need of a drink, right? I had done some service work on some committees. We do local conferences. I had even done like intergroup central office work, but I was never really happy about my sobriety. And I think quietly in the back of my head, I was telling myself, if I could just stay away from it long enough, right? If I could just get the right job, find the right man, live in the right neighborhood, if I could just fit the puzzle pieces just right, somehow, some way, I'll be able to have a glass of wine and enjoy it. And that is not what happened. So the relationship ended, as it should have, because it was for all the wrong reasons. And that is done through inventory and understanding why I enter into relationships and what I'm, selfishly seeking, all of those things. So the relationship ends, and I'm out of town, and I tell myself, I'm out of town. I'm just going to go get a six-pack, and when I get back to Cincinnati, I'm just going to drink off this breakup. I drink off that last chapter, right? I've been sober for almost 3 years. I've done this AA thing. I did those steps. I've got that sponsor. See, I'm not even being honest with myself. So it says where in the inventory, Where am I being dishonest with myself or with others? I will lie to myself and tell myself I'm doing far better than I am, right? I'm fine. Everything's fine. Don't you see how pretty my hair looks today? Or don't you see what nice car I'm driving? Surely everything's fine. No, I'm eaten up inside. I'm spiritually disconnected. I feel isolated and alone. I'm not doing any inventory. I'm certainly not praying. I can't focus to meditate. And I really just want to go home and watch Netflix. Like, that's what it is. Like, and I bear through a meeting, and I said something earlier about meeting makers make it. My story is that is not the truth. I can sit up here in a meeting, and I can be here for the hour and make it look like I'm aware of what's going on, and my mind will be reeling, and I will leave here and be miserable. And thank God that is not me today. So anyway, I get involved during this period of time. I'm getting active. I'm doing a lot of service, but I'm not doing a lot of the work. I'm not making amends. I'm not doing inventory. I'm not enlarging my spiritual life. I'm losing this connection to a power greater than myself, and I'm replacing it with a person. And those people will fail me. And when that failed me, that drink sounded really good. And the delusion of my alcoholism said, "You're out of town, Ashley. You can have a six-pack here. And when you get home, everything will go back to normal." And that did not happen. And I went on a nosedive of a spiral. But the miracle here is this: the hand of Alcoholics Anonymous never left me. I turned away from the hand of AA, not the other way around, right? And I would say horrible things like, you guys have York Street, right? Like, it's a big clubhouse. We have something called 405 Oak Street. I would say things like 405 Oak Street's just a meat market on Friday nights. They're just there to hook up, right? I don't know if it's true or not, but I had to make myself believe I didn't want to be there, right? Like, oh, those people, they're just a bunch of big book thumpers. They don't know what it's real. You know what I mean? Like, I would have to hate you, have to convince myself that this is, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because I kind of big booky myself now. But at the time, that was I can't be around that, because I wanted to drink so bad. So I would convince myself of all the reasons not to go. And this woman specifically, this one lady, Mary, would continue to reach out to me from this women's big book study that I used to do on Friday night for a very long time. And so I had gone away, and this was in 2018. This is when I was able to come back, and this is a really, really special story, and I always want to make sure that I tell it in just the right way, because I want to honor everybody involved, and I want everyone to know just how much it means to me and what that does and translates to me, so that I can be that hand. Because I get an opportunity to work with a lot of women today. I do a lot of institution meetings. In fact, I'm the Treatment, Literature, and Corrections Chair for our central office in the greater Cincinnati area. So I'm constantly coordinating folks to get plugged into jails and institutions, making sure they have the literature and resources they need to carry that message. I've served in a lot of different roles in our area service over the years, and I really love it. It gives me a sense of purpose. It makes me feel like I'm keeping the lights and the doors open, and it's really special. And so those people in my life at that time that were doing that for me are absolutely incredible. And so Mary was texting me, and at this point I had lost my job. I'd actually been there for 3 years. It was my 3-year anniversary that they cut me loose. And it wasn't because they didn't try. It was like somebody had handed that man the chapter to the employers. I was baffled at the way that he responded to me in my drinking. And he offered me opportunity, to take leave paid and go get myself together. And I tried to delusionally convince myself I could just sweat it out on the couch and just, not do anything. I wasn't willing to get up and go do anything. I just wanted it to go away. I wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. And so ultimately I lost my job. And so this lady's texting me, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to go to lunch?" And I was like, "No." And at this point, I'm drinking every day, nonstop, round the clock. I was drinking at the job, which is why he let me go. I was leaving at lunchtime. I was going across the street to CVS to get Twisted Tea. I can't stay until, it's like an alcohol drink, Twisted Tea. I don't know if you know what that is. But anyway, it's like spiked tea, right? And I thought nobody knew. I don't know why I'm like that, but... So they knew. I was blacked out at work, and it took me a really long time to make amends for that. like into almost 5 years. I tried to do it via email. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. And he was like, oh, it's okay. We just want the best for you. I was like, score? I'm out of it, right? He declined the meetup. I got to meet with him later, and that was amazing. And I'm so glad that he afforded me that opportunity. So Mary is calling me every day, and at this point, I'm only leaving my house to go down to the UDF to get more alcohol. I'm drinking Four Locos at the time. I don't know if you guys will know what they... Yes! Yes. I usually talk about the bars that I frequent in Cincinnati, but since you guys are in Colorado, I won't do that. But they're all like hole in the walls, and they go like, they start up here at like a Jeff Ruby cigar bar, like super swanky high end, and they go like this. And I end up at the worst possible dark, terrible place that I can get to be comfortable in. But yeah, you know about Four Locos, so my people. So yeah, I'm drinking Four Locos, eating honey buns. I was getting these like $5 bingo scratch off because it would literally take me all day to do because I couldn't focus. I had like one eye and like find the bee. It was pathetic. Anyway, so she's like, hey, I want to take you to lunch. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to lunch. And she was like, hey, I want to take you to lunch and a meeting. And I was like, oh God, she's desperate. She's calling me for a meeting. She was like, no, I'm celebrating my 30-year anniversary. I want to take you to lunch and go get a coin. I was like, God, isn't that sad? She doesn't have anybody to take to get her 30-year coin. Anyway, I go with her. May 8th, 2018. We got to this little place. It was a beautiful May day. Not a cloud on the horizon, as they say, between the entree and the appetizer, or the appetizer and the entree. I say, Mary, I'll be right back, and I go to the bathroom. And I go to the bathroom, and I'm gone for a period of time. And now I only know what happens based on what Mary and her friends have told me, because they come looking for me 15, 20 minutes later. They find me non-responsive on a bathroom floor. They call the squad. The squad comes to try to revive me over and over and over again. At this point, I'm doing nothing but drinking and taking high-powered sedatives, and it was too much for my body that day. And I went non-responsive on the bathroom floor. And at one point, they said to Mary, they said, who is her next of kin? There's nothing that we can do for her. And she said, I don't know. I was just coming to take her to an AA meeting. I don't know who to call. I don't know anything about her. And the hand of Alcoholics Anonymous was there that day. She took me out from a locked apartment and a locked building that I had been in for weeks alone, only leaving to go get more alcohol and come home and sit in my cups. I had alcoholic delusion. I had sleepless nights. I had so many insane thoughts. I didn't want to live that way, but I just didn't have the willingness to call and pick up the phone. It seemed so heavy at the time. But God did for me what I could not do for myself and took me out of that apartment and put me into the hands of Mary. So I come to. God brings me back that day, obviously, or I wouldn't be here, right? And I wake up to her on the way to the hospital with me, and we get to the hospital, and I have another person from Alcoholics Anonymous there, and her husband. Like, they were all there for me together. They showed up, and they put their hand out, and they said, let me show you the way. This is what we do. And I went to their basement, and I stayed there until I got secured, and not me, somebody else, secured a bed at a local detox and treatment center, and I went there. Now, I show up to that treatment center, and I am dark. I feel absolutely separated from any power greater than myself. I feel humiliated, and I feel angry. And I remember them offering me some medication to comfort me, right? And I remember telling them no thank you, and they didn't quite understand why. See, I can't have a process where I swap one for another. I can't have an experience where it's not that bad. I need it to be bad, and I need to have every ounce of pain that comes with it so that I'm just desperate enough to find the willingness to do what's suggested, come any cost, right? So I'm 3 days in, and I'm down in the cafeteria, and they're painting on canvas, and I'm pissed because I can't quite figure out what painting on canvas has to do with getting sober, right? And so there's this group of women in there, and I'm at this little round table by myself. And at this point, not even the other flunkies in the schoolyard will play with me because I'm the angry one, right? I'm sitting at the table, and I'm shaking, and I'm mad, and I'm not real friendly. And so they're all hee-heeing and laughing. They'd gone through all of their detox and things, and I'm riddled with anger and fear and all the other things that are running through my head, and really just like, how did I get here again? And here comes this woman, and she sits down next to me, and she says, "How are you doing?" And I just started to sob. And I told her the truth. I was dark, and I was an alcoholic, and I had tried every possible means that I had in me to figure out how to drink successfully. And this time, it had gone to a place that I wasn't willing to go again, and I was willing to do anything. She asked me if I had prayed, and I realized that I hadn't. I think I probably said, "Thanks, God," as I packed my bag for treatment, But I knew what she meant, and I knew it meant third step prayer. She said, "Are you willing to go upstairs and do that?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I went upstairs, and I got on my knees. And from that day to this day, I've been sober ever since. Now, I had a sponsor that I had had for that period of time, and she was wonderful. Although at the end, I would have told you she wasn't, because, everybody else is the problem, right? I didn't go get a new sponsor. I'm really grateful for that, because I called her from that treatment center, detox. And as soon as she picked up the phone, she said, "I love you so much. I'm so glad you're there. When can I come and take you to a meeting?" The hand of Alcoholics Anonymous, again, that promised to be there, was there. And they started to bring me back into the fold of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I returned to my old home group. But see, I had a new willingness about me, that self-knowledge and that half measures, and that maybe somehow, some way I can get away with a few drinks, right? And even that part where I wasn't happy about my sobriety, I was grateful. It was a gift. It was life. It was a miracle. And I was willing to do anything, like that drowning man, seizing onto the life preserver that they were offering me. I was willing to do it. So she asked me to do my inventory while I was in there. As soon as I got out, within just a few days, I shared that with her. And like Justin said, I didn't have some big aha moment. I just left her office from where I did it, and I felt a part of. I felt like I had checked the box to feel like I'm doing what is required and necessary to get the solution that all of those people had. I wanted what you guys had, and I was willing to do anything to get it. And really, what's amazing, my sobriety date is May 10th. And that year, if you've never been to Founders Day, I really want to encourage you to do that. I know the International is this year, and it's probably just one plane away for you guys to get there, but it's also pretty one plane to get to Founders Day. It's really, really fun. I go every year, and I take sponsees now. And that first year, I had always gone the few times before, but that year, May 10th is my sobriety date, and June 10th is the birthday of AA. And just happened to be that year, the big meeting in the stadium, which is where 10,000 alcoholics all get together, right, and do the big Saturday night meeting, was on my 30 days. And so my sponsor, she had brought, they don't give you coins, there's way too many people to do that, but she had it in her pocket, and they do this sobriety countdown. And when it got to 30 days, there's a ton of us from Cincinnati, and, I stood up, and everybody cheers, and it's the only place you can go to get claps for 30 days, right? Everybody's this is a lifestyle, you got to do it, all the outside people, but we're super happy for 30 days, right? And my sponsor slipped me that coin, and I felt a little bit more a part of, right? And then the Lord's Prayer at the end, when we all held hands and we did it in that stadium, that was a spiritual experience. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. And most importantly, I was standing there looking at all the examples in that stadium of what was working for them. And I knew intuitively it could work for me if I just got myself out of the way, right? Accept the spiritual help. And life got really busy. We came back after that 30-day chip, and I was told that I needed to put alcoholics in my car and take them to meetings. I needed to get busy in my steps. I needed to start making my amends. I needed to develop my relationship with my higher power and a routine to facilitate that. So I started doing, all the things that make that make that possible in my life. And like I said, when I started, like, that's evolved for me, you know? I did like recovery yoga for a season. I did like the super rigid, you have to do the same 3 prayers in the same 3 orders in the same 3 ways or it wasn't right. Like I'd have to start over if I got interrupted. And then I started to realize that God in my life is going to allow me like to wear like some loose clothing. Like sometimes it's going to look like recovery yoga and sometimes it's going to look like a YouTube guided meditation because I have ADD and my mind won't be quiet. And sometimes it looks like showing up to a meeting and working with a new person. All of those things are ways that I draw closer to God. And it's just been amazing. I've had so many wonderful things happen during my time in sobriety, and I feel like I'm like a baby in this thing. You know what I mean? Like I look at some of these old timers. My sponsor's been sober for like 40 years, and she's like so serene. She's so serene, and I'm like, I didn't cuss out anybody at the airport today in Denver, and I feel like that is super progress. You know, she talks about it's okay to feel. See, I used to have this other kind of sponsor, and it was not that kind of sponsor. And now I've got this really, like, it's okay. And I need that too, you know, we just evolve. And so I'll tell you a little bit about my home group because it's super important to me, and that's probably what I'll close with. But so I'd been sober for a couple years, and COVID started, not quite a couple, but pretty early, and I knew that I needed direct and immediate contact with other alcoholics. And I love a good Zoom meeting, don't get me wrong. I did one this morning to tune back in with some folks from Cincinnati, but I was still pretty early, and I still was pretty unsure, and just the space that AA exists, there's a serenity that beams off of it. Listen, I dropped my phone on the way here, and it went to a black screen, and I freaked out. I didn't freak out as bad as I could have, but I did freak out. And I was saying I got to go to Verizon and go get one or whatever. And so I'm running late. I'm late to the speaker dinner. Everything's insane. I have to get a new phone. I get this upgrade. Again, I didn't cuss anybody out, so I'm feeling super spiritually fit. And I get in the car, and I'm like, Google Maps is telling me to go this way, and Joel's telling me to go a different way. And I'm like, Google Maps says no. He wants to take me the scenic route. I'm like, we just got to get to the meeting, you know? And I get out of the car, not at the restaurant, right? I'm still nervous at the restaurant because I haven't met anybody. And it's like the time's going faster and it's getting closer, and I'm still wound up really tight. And I prayed already, but it's like not coming off. Anyway, I open the car door of the church parking lot, and I step out and I go, just being in proximity of you guys in this space where this magic happens is incredible. So during COVID, when the Zoom was the only channel to hear the voices of Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought, masks be damned. We're going to have a party in the living room. And so we did. And we had these 1s or 2s or 3s of Alcoholics Anonymous pop up in the living room. And a lot of people said when they came over, it was very much like the 30s when they read from the book about just a few people in a living room carrying the message. And we started this little group, and they became this faithful group that ultimately moved to a church. And this is a really cool story, too. I had gone down to the central office, the inner group, and got a bunch of coins. And at one point, we had moved to the backyard, and a treatment center was coming. We ate every single week. My fiance, he would come home and make something, and I'd stop at Kroger and pick up all these things, this local market. And we were having an eat and meet during this whole time, and it was amazing. I mean, really, it was incredible. And I went down to the central office one day, and I was picking up this box of coins, and he said, it's a lot of coins there, right in the middle of COVID. Yeah, it is, John, yeah. Where are these going? I thought he was interrogating me. I was like, I felt like I was doing something wrong. Like, maybe I shouldn't be getting all these coins. Who am I giving them to? Am I having a party at my house? Like, don't call the governor. Don't do it. And I told him about that. And he said, there was just a pastor that stopped by here a couple of days ago. I've got his number on my desk. He was looking for a meeting to be brought into their church. Well, immediately I was like, well, I hope it's on the west side because I'm not driving to the east side. God would have had me drive wherever. But turns out it was about 1.5 miles from my house. And we connected with that pastor, and he said, we just would do anything to have you guys in here and, have a place for people that suffer alcoholism to come. And we started a meeting at a little church. And it got busy real fast. And it started to get to be about 50 or 60 people. Then we started to get to about 70 people. Then we ran out of chairs. There literally was not enough chairs in the building in this little tiny church to hold this meeting. And we ended up finding a bigger church back in November. And now we have like 80 to 100 people every Wednesday night. And it's incredible. And it's just a testament to this desire to be in community with each other and to carry the message. It's a speaker meeting on Wednesdays. And we're right in the middle of what we call the heart of sober living, right? So a lot of new sobriety, a lot of people that aren't even sure they're alcoholic, right? They know that there's something going on, and they may have been told they needed to try out, some meetings or, in some form or fashion. We're there, and it's an open meeting, right? And we have a speaker that comes in and tells about their journey so that hopefully these people and myself and everyone that attends can relate. And we eat hot dogs every week because there's a hot dog roller and they have a bingo hall there. So we got all this room and we eat hot dogs. And it's my very favorite part of the week. And honestly, it has kept me absolutely 100% connected to this fellowship and ultimately to a power greater than myself, because I do wake up every day and I ask God to allow me to be a maximum service, even when it's inconvenient, even when I'd rather not. You know what I mean? Even when I'm tired of hot dogs. We sure do eat a lot of them. But it's amazing. And you guys, Colorado is beautiful, and you have a wonderful fellowship. I've been to York Street a couple of times, the Kent meeting last night. All of you here tonight, you guys are warm and welcoming. You have a beautiful state and a wonderful recovery fellowship here, and I'm really grateful and honored that I got to come. Thank you.
Thank you once again to Ashley.